everyone. Welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers. You guys know on the MHP Show, we talk about anything and everything that has to do with mobile home parks, operations, crazy stories, all the things that can happen, right? And so today I got another guest with us here. I've got Mr. Ryan Narus. Ryan Narus has been in the business for a while now, and now he's amassed 82 mobile home parks, over 4,200 units. Dude, freaking awesome. And the greatest part about this, and I know we'll get into this, is that Ryan started with absolutely nothing. So we're going to kill your limiting beliefs that you need all this money and experience to start today. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Derek, it's awesome to be here. You can't see it. I should have propped it up, but this little ball of joy right here is the Carolina Panthers sweatshirt you got me. Gets a lot of use.
Oh, wow. You're still wearing it this year, so I know you're a loyal fan.
That's like my main message to my kiddos is, look, you're going to get to pick a sports fan. Obviously, I'm going to be a little biased, but don't care if you pick my rival or some random team. You just got to stick with it. I ain't raising no fair weather fans.
Totally. And look, dude, I'm telling you, I think I would rather the Cowboys be extremely shitty for like 10 years in a row instead of like, teasing me for 15 years. Like they get me in the playoffs, 12 wins, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do something this year. And then, kaput's first round of the playoffs, the typical Cowboys year. I think I would rather be, goose egged for a year, to be honest with you.
Hey, I'm a Charlotte Hornets fan. We haven't been good ever. So just be careful what you wish for. It's been about 20 years since we've been in the second round of the playoffs. So I would gladly take consistent playoffs over just whatever the heck is going on at the Charlotte Hornets. But not saying bad things because I love my Hornets. So if you're listening, LaMelo Ball, please invite me out.
Oh, all right, dude. Well, hey, let's get into it. So every time I start the show, I always ask people about their first sort of entrepreneurial journey. So what was that for you?
Yeah, look, great question. And I think to a certain degree, entrepreneurs are born because when I look back at my life, I always had been doing random entrepreneurial things. But I think my first official one was my senior year of high school, when I used to think I wanted to be a stand-up comedian professionally, and I needed experience, and I wasn't in Chicago or LA or New York. So there wasn't a lot of open mic nights in Charlotte, North Carolina. So what better place to do it than at my school? Well, there's a little bit of a problem. And that problem is I went to Catholic school. Bit of a tough sell. So what I ended up doing was I went to my principal and I gave him the pitch, stand up for charity. So stand-up comedy for charity. We're going to partner with Holy Angels, and we're going to get, the funny class clown kids to put on a proper set. I'll MC it. And obviously the biggest concern is, what are you going to say? This is a Catholic school. We're going to be strict, period. So what I did was I grabbed some of the funny teachers. Everybody knows at least one funny teacher, right? So I got two of the funny teachers to come on board, and they agreed to not only chaperone, but obviously go over all the jokes, make sure it's all kosher. And so I had all my ducks in a row before I pitched it to the principal. And so my pitch to the principal was, we got Mr. Arnett on board. Here are the people. Here's the gist of the jokes. No bad words. It's all for Holy Angels, yada, yada, yada. And he looked over it. He was like, this is a Catholic school, right? And I was like, I know. And he's like, we have never done anything like this before. And I said, you've never done anything like this before yet. The rest was history. We raised a little light of $1,000 across two events. And the next year or two, they ended up, some of the folks, non-seniors that did it with me, ended up carrying it on, which was incredibly cool. And, my life's been littered with moments like that where there wasn't exactly a game plan for how to do it. Like, hey, here's the SAT prep. If you want to get a good SAT score, take these classes, do this, and then bam. This was hey, this has literally never happened in however long Charlotte Catholic High School has been in existence. So there is no roadmap. And to me, I've always found it fascinating and fun to kind of go down the road less traveled, if you will, or literally never traveled, and just kind of trailblaze into something cool. So that was my first and proudest moment of entrepreneurship. And to be fair, Derek, that was the first time I did something that worked. It may not have actually been my first. This is my first big successful one. And it was all for a good cause.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And this is why I love this question. Everybody listening, because as much as you and I have talked, as many long conversations as we've had, I did not know you wanted to be a stand-up comedian or you put this together. So that's awesome, dude.
Thanks. There's a reason you don't know, and it's because it turns out you have to be funny to be a paid comic. So I don't exactly have that going for me.
True. And I want to touch on something you said there. And there's a couple other questions I want to ask you about your Comeup, but I wanted to touch on this. So you were talking about going down the road less traveled. Now, we hear people say that and talk about that all the time, but I wanted to unpack that because, many people don't want to do that. And you've obviously done that multiple times through your career. What is that inside of you that's been like giving you that confidence and certainty to move forward and actually do that?
That's a great question. And I don't know, I can't say for sure if it's either just how I'm wired or if I taught myself this or if it's some combination of the two. But I call it around 7th grade. I just decided I was going to be popular and I was going to go figure out how to make everybody like me. Did not go very well. I guess in that process, I just reached a level where I was like, oh, what am I doing here? Why do I care what people think about me? And at first, growing up, I was just so annoying. I was ADHD. I had 0 people skills. I was a button pusher. And then I just one day decided I wanted people to like me, and I was committed to figuring out how to get somebody to like me, en masse, if you will. And then I guess came to peace with the fact that maybe I don't need people to like me or think I'm cool or whatever. And I just realized, I guess, at a certain point in time that you can get what you want out of life and not be cool. These are not mutually exclusive, right? Like, you can be very rich or have a great marriage or be X, Y, or Z in your life and mega successful and not necessarily a liked person. And to me, I guess whenever I just kind of came to that realization, I realized there's a whole lot of things. There's a huge expense to being cool, like an enormous expense to being cool. I mean, you have to drive a certain car, or you have to wear certain clothes, or you have to do certain activities, or you have to talk a certain way. Oh, don't do that. That's not X, Y, or Z. And what that's allowed me to do is save a boatload of money, and specifically around mobile home parks. You know this story. We've shared it a million times. Ian and I literally moved into a mobile home park. We quit our corporate jobs and went and lived in a mobile home park. Not many people do that. And there was even my own wife, she's quick to admit on my own podcast, for crying out loud, I did not like this. I want to say it wasn't consenting, but let's just say I was very not happy with the decision. And when you just look at it like this, going down the road less traveled, it's amazing how many kind of barriers to entry exist that are just, if I'm being blunt, just stupid. Oh, well, it's not sexy enough, or you're not driving a BMW, or you're not getting paid blah, so don't do it. Derek, it's just, I maybe I was born this way, maybe I learned it, maybe both, but I don't care, man. I want what I want, and what I want is largely helping others, and I'm going to go and try and figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. And I know Ian, it's not like he had a terrible job. Like, he was making like pretty good money there, from what I understood, and I think you were as well.
Yep.
And so, the air quotes normal person would be like, oh my God, like, I've got a 401k. I've got benefits. I'm making good money. I'm extremely stable. And you're going to tell me I have to go live in a trailer park. Like, what possessed you to go and do that? Because when I say it here, like, it sounds like, to me, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Of course, to get to where you want to go, you got to do that. But like, were you scared at all in making that decision? Or
of course. Anybody who tells you they're not afraid they're just trying to puff up their chest. We're all afraid. We're humans. If you're not afraid, you're like a sociopath. Like, it's not normal. Your fear is designed, is hardwired into your psyche on purpose to make sure you don't do something that will literally kill you or permanently maim you. It's a natural reaction. Speaking of not needing to be cool, this is a great, for example, I don't feel the need to go tell people I have no fear. Quite the opposite. I, for all intents and purposes, mostly a coward. Like, things really scare me. I am a human twig. I weigh like nothing. I'm not a very strong individual. Like, I'm not gonna threaten. Like, my presence isn't threatening. I'm just not. I'm gonna be scared. I think the cool thing is less, oh, I have no fear. The cooler thing is being able to overcome your fear. Courage is badass. Courage is strong character and conviction to fight the good fight, if you will. And, when it comes into moving in the mobile home, I get this question all the time. Why would you do that? What possessed you? For many different angles, for many different reasons, people ask. But the truth of the matter is, I saw a lane and I took it. Right? So let's say you're on the highway, it is packed, and you see an exit for a frontage road, and you can roll the dice and get on the frontage road and see if it's just an accident, an exit or two ahead of you, and then get back on the highway after the accident's cleared up. Or maybe you get on the frontage road and you just added another half hour to your trip. Well, to me, it was frontage road. I'm taking it. And that frontage road was losing my 401k, my benefits, my nice salary, my cushy job. I was in a freaking leadership rotational program, for crying out loud, with an MBA from Wake Forest University and a huge bank in Wells Fargo. I had every reason to stay put, and I could have stayed put and, lived a very comfortable life. But I saw an exit ramp and I took it. And that exit ramp was, I don't have enough money. Really had like barely enough money to pay my own bills at the time. But so in other words, I had nowhere close to enough money to be able to match the income that I was making. And everybody's speaking of going back to, we'll revert to this a million times, Derek, this need to be cool or legit or whatever. Wow, I was making X amount of dollars. Like, I can't jump to this entrepreneurial venture unless I'm making X amount of money. I didn't make what I was making at Wells for, 5 years, it felt like, until after I made that jump. I mean, it was maybe not 5 years, but pretty darn close to it. I mean, I'm very public about it. Ian and I were paying ourselves $35,000 a piece for years. And then eventually we raised ourselves to 50 and then eventually to 60. And now I don't even care or even know how much I make, for crying out loud. And I think it all comes back to this, like, whether it's wired, whether it's not, or both, like, fear, everybody has it. You have to find courage. And when you see that frontage road, if you have conviction, you've done your homework, you're ready to go, you're not going to do something colossally stupid or illegal, right? Like, at a certain point in time, again, it's not the absence of fear. It's pushing forward in the face of fear. And let me tell you something, it is a lot more gratifying and fulfilling to take a big risk like that, huge risk, especially when everybody in the moment tells you you're crazy. To do it, pull it off, and know in large part you did it and pulled it off in spite of the fear that you felt, and you overcame your own insecurities and fears and all of that. It is so much better than to say, yes, I was scared, but I had the courage, than it is to say, I have no fear.
Yeah, totally, dude. And that's, I agree with you. The people that say that they don't have any fear is BS. I got asked by someone on our master class, Derek, how do you get over the fear of making phone calls? I'm like, well, even now, if I've got to call somebody like a park owner or something, and it's the first call, you still get some apprehension. You just build a muscle of doing it anyways, right? You feel the fear and you do it anyways. I had to do that in the insurance business every day for 5 years. And so I built up that muscle because I didn't want to go talk to a business owner. I didn't want to cold call. Like there was apprehension there every day, and it's still there. You just got to get good at doing it anyways. So, Ryan, so when you guys moved into that mobile home park, and so, I don't know if you guys killed it on that deal or not, but you can answer that into this question. But I think more importantly, what did you guys learn in that first deal that you guys were in that propelled you to where you are today?
Oh, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. It was graduate school for mobile home parks. Did we do well? Yes, everybody ended up doing very well. The investors, the operators, the acquirers, everybody was better off because of that deal. Even the sellers to this day are friends of mine. They're wonderful human beings. And so it was a huge win all the way around. And there's just, at the time, it just made sense to me. And in looking back, it was even better than I think we had realized in that moment. Is being on the front lines, consuming the product you are selling, or in this case, leasing, and understanding from the assembly line, quite literally, what it is that the core business is, how it operates, how does the consumer use the products or / service, how do they think, what appeals to them, what's a waste of time to them. Having my neighbors quite literally tell me what it's like to live there, what they'd like to see. We had resident meetings. The works. Some of these folks I still talk to this day, and I don't even own any share in that mobile home park anymore. What's crazy, Derek, is Ian and I actually put a mobile home park under contract close to that one, and we called all our friends on the way to Atlanta, Georgia, and they all showed up. They all stopped what they were doing to come see us, which is years after the fact, which is crazy. And to me, it was the relationships. It was not just the folks living in the mobile home parks, but the vendors, the investors, our co-JV operators. We just learned it all. I was arguing my own cases in court, which was crazy. I never thought I would ever have to do that. It was top to bottom, moving in homes, converting vacant pads to RVs, marketing to RVs, evictions, tenant disputes, easement issues. It was about everything you could run into, all packaged in one. And the office was walking distance to my mobile home. Look, there's a lot of folks who tell me, man, how did you get started with nothing? And when I tell them that story, they glamorize it. Their eyes get sparkle and all that jazz. But when pressed, they wouldn't do it. Call it fear or call it whatever you want to call it, because everybody's different. But the truth of the matter is that was a frontage road. And that was like absolute steroids to my mobile home park game. And the irony is, the folks who argue like, hey, I should be behind a desk doing due diligence, armchair due diligence and underwriting and all that jazz. I actually learned more about mobile home parks and improved my underwriting skills better than a lot of folks I had met at that time who maybe drive through their assets once a quarter and say they did it. I'm there. I'm talking to people. I taught myself Spanish, for crying out loud, so I can go speak with people who don't even speak this language about what is the product that you're saying. I tell people this all the time too. I'm like, if you sold juice, you would probably at least at some point in time take a sip of the juice to see what it tasted like, right? You talk to a customer. What do you enjoy about this? How do you consume this, right? So you can be an overall better business person. So to me, we could make a whole series about what I learned, but anybody listening in, there is nothing better than doing a deep dive in your business. And just to end my answer to this question, when I was at Wells Fargo, I had an hour commute in, an hour commute home, and an hour for lunch. And Ian and I took those 2 hours on the way to and from to talk and to strategize. And I eventually started taking my lunch hour to make cold calls. And I was at the time married, no kids. I had the ability to go all in and work a full-time job, and it was brutal. Dude, as soon as I went full-time, even though I more than halved my salary, lost all my benefits, all that jazz, it exploded the amount of time I had to make cold calls and to work on my business, because anybody who's ever had a job before knows you're not working every second you're on the clock. You just aren't. And that's true when you're a property manager of your own asset. And what did I do in my spare time there? I found time to cold call. I found time to network. And so just by the sheer fact of going full time, I freaking added rocket fuel to my timeline of not only really being full time, but also having at and above the salary, if you will, that I was at when I was at a big bank. So, I mean, to me, it was a no-brainer. And if you listen to my podcast, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, I interview Ryan Narus. And the funny thing is, while I was interviewing him, he went on a pretty similar story where he was working insurance and he quit his job. And it's just funny because he speaks so nonchalantly about it. Like, oh yeah, I just quit my job and chase my dreams. Right. And like, that's to me, the real beauty of it is not feeling like, social norms or dictate that, you go to college, you have this job at this big company, you drink the corporate Kool-Aid. Like, no, it's okay to not be cool or legit or have people think you're nuts. Right. As long as you're calculated about it, you take the risk, you make the sacrifice, you have the courage, but also you're calculated about this. You're like, the rah is great if you actually have done some work around it, right? Like, please don't listen in and be like, sweet, I'm going to quit my job, right? So.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. You don't be like, hey, I'm going to quit. No, right. Don't do that. And I think too, one thing to add on your point there, I think when people go into that, I talk to people all the time and they're like, they have to own 100% of the deal themselves. They don't want to partner. They don't want to do any of these other things. And I'm like, look, if you really want to get into the business, like, you're going to have to get over that. Right. Because even I had that in the beginning. I didn't want to partner. I wanted to own everything myself with the little cash that I did have. I wanted to figure out how to get into a deal. And I think people have to get around their ego in that regard as well, because in reality, if you have $1 billion portfolio and you own 10% of that, or you own 100% of a $2 million park, like, what would you rather be? Right.
Right.
So, but yeah, so moving on here, Ryan. So you guys did that first deal, and then you guys, how many parks did you and Ian get up to?
I think we ended up buying, was it 16? We had about 1,000. We were approaching 1,000 lots together.
Yeah. And then, so you guys, like, I've learned so much from you regarding like operations and really getting into the nitty gritty stuff. Like, how did you like learn that, like, hey, these are the things that I need to go into on a daily basis. These are these small things that actually really make a difference, because you're so good. And from talking to you, you're really good at not missing a detail. And I admire that about you. And so I'd like you to just, broaden on that a little bit, and in those details, and how you learn to be like that and learning the details of this business.
Well, first off, thank you. That's very kind of you. I know you've seen what I do very intimately, and the answer is just anger. I just get really mad. Very frequently, and I just am impatient and prone to anger when stuff breaks. And what that's done is that, jokes aside, I am just a guy who wants to get it done the right way and as fast as possible. And whenever you're trying to, there's just operations 101. If you ever study operations, that's the whole point, is how can we manufacture whatever as efficiently as possible. And I guess that may just be how my brain is wired, that I want things, I want to watch the assembly line moving as quickly as and efficiently as possible. But going back to the joke, there is some truth to that. I mean, there's a lot of times where I've just been fueled by sheer anger. Like something unbelievably stupid happens, and I try to take that frustration out by using that as motivation to try to figure stuff out on my own. I mean, dude, I've learned so much about law, about plumbing, about utilities around septic and well, stuff I never thought I was ever going to learn because I hired the wrong contractor, or I made a mistake on a contract, or somebody argued this in court and got an extra couple of days, or you have an employee who goes rogue, or an investor who says something that catches it right. Like to me, it's just, I'm so dedicated to getting to the right answer that I have trouble to a certain degree outsourcing things because I want it to, I'm so meticulous and maybe perfectionist is the right answer, right word rather, but I just want the right answer. And I don't care if I'm the one that does it or somebody else does it. I don't care if I get credit or somebody else gets famous. Like I just want the right answer, and ultimately I want what's best for our communities and our residents selfishly, because what business owner doesn't want really happy residents and clients? Like that's how you stay in business, right? And so to me, it's not just about, doing the right thing ethically. It's also that, I feel like I have an obligation to anybody who ever gives me $1, whether it's through my mentorship program or through the book that I wrote or through my mobile home parks or RV parks or anything. Like if somebody gives me money, I feel like I have a duty to them to give it my all. And a big part of that is zooming in on the details to make sure they're going right. Even if you have a rock star contractor or a rock star employee, like these people are humans, just like all of us are, and it's okay to trust but verify. In fact, you should be doing that. So thank you for the compliment. And anybody who gets mad or frustrated, just do your best to learn from me and channel that energy into trying to learn and make a productive use of that frustration.
Yeah, for sure. Because guys, guess what? You're going to run into a contractor that, something goes wrong in this business. I mean, I have not talked to one operator that has not ran into this same problem. So that's the kind of stuff is going to happen. And you just, you got to learn from it. It's hard to prevent completely, but, you can do your best, moving forward so it doesn't happen again. So, looking obviously in this business, we've seen tons of consolidation in the last, especially 2 years, really 2 or 3 years, like, 5 to 10 years down the road. Will there be any parks to buy, in your opinion? What will this business look like in 10 years?
In 10
Maybe we'll
years,
own everything.
Look, if you study any asset class, be it self-storage or office or retail or anything, there's always distress. There's always a distressed asset. There's always an operator who didn't know what they were doing, or maybe they did know what they were doing and they passed away and it wasn't clear who gets the inheritance, right? And then there's a weird period of we don't really know who's in charge, and then bad people come in and start embezzling money or stealing money, right? There's always going to be distress. And anytime you have distress or mismanagement, you have the opportunity to come in with or without money, by the way, because this is what Ian and I realized. We could either go and invent something and go pitch it to Shark Tank, which is really hard and like near impossible when you look at the odds, or you could go and buy a cash flowing business. Not sexy. Nobody's talking about it. Never going to have a show on ABC or whatever Shark Tank is on, because it's just not sexy. Like, hey, why don't we go buy a failing septic company who wants to talk about poop? Well, guess what? There's a lot of money in poop because it turns out everybody poops, right? So like, to me, buying a business, not even necessarily just a mobile home park, if there is distress, and there's always going to be some distress, and you can find that opportunity and convince an investor to back you, you don't even need money for crying out loud or experience. You can go and figure it out on your own. So to me, I think there's always going to be a layer of distress. Now, what do I think is going to happen in 10 years from now? I think the big question is around 3D printing and is around any other potential industry disruptor. Because the market, and I mean the average citizen, is slowly but surely starting to realize the problem. And in my opinion, the biggest problem with affordable housing right now is zoning departments and local governments. And I think the issue is when you have a limited supply that is not growing, and where it is growing is things like luxury homes and luxury apartment complexes, where it makes sense why they're investing in that, because there's more tax dollars and there's just more margins to be made. Why build stuff for working class people? It's just like the government to a certain degree, feels like they have to force it down. The federal government is almost like pressured to force it down the throats of these smaller municipalities and counties to do it. But so in other words, I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think the people who largely vote in, the city council folks and all those folks, a lot of those are already landowners. And if you look at the average net worth of the average American that owns a home, the majority of their wealth is in their primary residence. And when you look at it that way, then you have a lot of taxpayers who go, wow, I want to help keep housing costs down for my kids, but like, at what cost to me? Is my home going to go down in value because there's now an influx of supply? Well, to me, if one is to invent a way to circumvent or work with local municipalities, combat NIMBYism, increase the supply in an efficient way, like, for example, if there's any legs to 3D printing or whatever is next to increase supply, that is going to severely hamper the ability for rent growth, which is where all the value is in these, stabilized assets. Distressed assets, there's always value, right? You bring in new homes, you increase the units. What I'm talking about is like fresh, stabilized assets. So in 10 years, it's all going to come down to what we do on voting day, who we vote in, and what they do. Because as we've seen, if you pay attention to politics, a lot of people you vote for end up not doing what you voted them in to do. So even if you vote for somebody who says all the right things, it doesn't mean they're going to go do it. So to me, it's, where do I see it in 10 years? I think we as a people, I'm a little bit pessimistic on people in general. I think we're pretty stupid in groups. I think we're smart, wonderful as individuals. I think we are stupid in groups. And as a result, I don't think, I think if there is no entrant in terms of a disruptor like a 3D printing, and we're just left to American politics to solve the issue, I think it's going to continue to be an outstanding asset class to invest in and be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree 100%. The 3D printing thing, I don't know much about that. But what do you think the likeliness that something like that happens? Because as everyone in our industry is like, nothing can disrupt this asset class because the fundamentals are so great, which is to a degree. But like, no one thought COVID could shut down the world for 2 years either.
There's a wonderful interview of Jeff Bezos in the 90s on 60 Minutes, where the gentleman interviewing him went, how could Amazon ever threaten Sears and Roebuck? Right? So when you look at it that way, I mean, the biggest, most successful, I believe the most successful company of all time was the Dutch, was it the Dutch East?
Dutch East India Company, yeah.
And it's staggering when you look at, or the robber barons from the 1800s. I mean, there's tons of like, oh my gosh, those who control the railways control the economy. And that was very true for a long time. Now, when is the last time you've been on a train? I can't tell you. Right. So
Right.
it's hard to know. And dude, when you and I were kids, do you remember going to the amusement park and being like, all right, well, I want to go on this ride and you want to go on that ride. All right, let's agree to meet here in 15 minutes. And then you show back up in 15 minutes. The other person not there. What do you got to do? You got to go to the PA system. Would Derek Vickers please show up here? Right. Like now I'm like, you go there, I'll go here, I'll text you.
Yeah.
I couldn't have foreseen that 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, so like to me, it's you know, I think you mentioned COVID. There were plenty of people who said, "Hey, a pandemic could really rock our economy." Bill Gates was one of them. Long before COVID happened, he had been investing in malaria treatments, and he had been very public about that. And so I think, you know, whatever hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Yeah.
So like 9/11 is another good example. Like, oh, you know, how did the CIA botch that one? Or this recent one with Israel and Gaza. Oh, how did, you know, the Mossad or whatever they're called, how did they botch that one? It's like, well, it's easy looking in 2020, right? And it's really hard to do it looking forward. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be really bullish on this space. I'm not going anywhere pending something crazy happening. I still want to encourage anybody listening to this to get involved in this space. We need good landlords. We do. And I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. That being said, my dude, 20 years ago, I didn't have a cell phone and I would have thought you were crazy and told me about text messaging and Facebook and stuff that's like just normal part of our lives now.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, it's like, it's crazy that, you know, I remember shows when I was little, like basically screens where you could look and talk to the person, like FaceTime. And now that's like, you know, it's a normal occurrence.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's interesting. And I'm always fascinated at like, you know, because you've just seen, just like you were talking about with Bezos and that interview and the robber barons with the railroads, Vanderbilt and those guys. When you think that like, oh my God, this can never be disrupted, boom, you know, so I do think about that. But with that being said, you know, I get asked all the time, like, hey, is now a good time to get into business? Like, yes, it is. It's the best time to get into business because a year later, you know, if you didn't get in, you're going to be like, okay, I should have gotten in a year before. And if you'd wait a year after that, you're going to be like, you know, I should have gotten in before that. And I think your regret and my regret is that, you know, I didn't find this space and get into it faster.
Right.
So the best thing to do is get in it and start today. And Ryan has proved to you today that you absolutely don't need any money to do it. So one last thing I always like to ask here, Ryan, and then I'm going to share a story that you and I had together. So, I know it's funny. I know you know the one that I'm going to share. So crazy mobile home park story. What's your craziest?
My craziest mobile home park story? Oh, come on, dude. There's 8,000 of these.
Give it anything that you and Ian. Like
the guy who asked me if he was going to get denied because he touched a butt in 1998, that comes to mind.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who got arrested and said, well, I just didn't feel like why I asked him, I'm like, sir, why did you resist arrest? I'm just curious. And he was like, well, I didn't feel like I should be arrested. I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Right. Like, I mean, the guy who told me I ruined his day and so did the casino. I was like, why did I ruin your day? Oh, because I denied you because you had bad credit. Okay. And why did the casino ruin your day? Oh, because they told you couldn't gamble because you didn't have any money. Okay.
Like,
all right. Like, I'm trying to help, but I mean, oh my gosh.
There's so many
days, dude.
Yeah. The one that I was going to share. So Ryan and we were hanging out and driving through a park in Tampa in the morning, and we drive through and I look over and there is probably, I don't know, how old do you think she was? 60, 65-year-old woman.
Pushing it.
But
yeah.
Ass naked walking around outside. I'm like, what is this?
I was on the phone and you just like pointed across my face and I'm like, what did you do? And I dude, the next time I went to that property, I sent you pictures of this. There's a half naked man with a giant, like Lord of the Rings wizard staff walking through that property, and he was half naked, but he was wearing a dress, and it wasn't even wearing it. He had just like tied it around. Of course, we called the police. There's kids around, and I think I told you this. The police show up, and he immediately starts trying to barter with them. I couldn't hear him do this. We were at a distance. But he starts trying to barter with them like, hey, I'm going to give you these leaves if you'll leave me alone. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I just, I want to help, but.
Yeah, I figure that I'm going to make some kind of compilation of, all the people's crazy mobile home park stories, or maybe do some kind of group chat where we can share these things. Cause I know a bunch of other guys that keep all this stuff in a folder. Like some of the stuff that comes, the messages that come through and stuff are just ridiculous.
Well, I have mine backed up on Google Drive. That's actually true.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything less.
All of my stories backed up because they're worth remembering and repeating.
For sure. Well, dude, Ryan, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you coming on. Tons of value in this here. And guys, I just want to reiterate, like, Ryan started with nothing. Like, you got no excuses. And, that's why we're here. Ryan has a program where he can help you. I can help you get started in this industry. And Ryan, dude, thanks again. And MHP show, everybody, we're on every week. If you want to say anything before we go, Ryan.
I do. I have one quote from Jim Carrey that I've shown you a bunch of times, and I just want to share because it's so perfect. If you're not willing to downgrade your lifestyle for a year to have the lifestyle you want forever, you care too much about what other people think. That when I saw that quote, I saved it. It's like one of my backgrounds, and it's just so perfect because it's exactly what Ian and I did. We sacrificed our lifestyle for more than a year. Sorry, Jim Carrey, wishing it could have only been a year. Took a couple of years to get back to kind of a middle-class lifestyle, and I hopefully, knock on wood, will never go back. But yeah, I wanted to share that with the entrepreneurs and anybody else who may be looking in, whether you want to invest in mobile home parks or whatever business you have with mobile home parks. I just want everybody to know, like, my goal in life is to help affordable housing. It is the change. I want to be the change I want to see in the world. And Derek, you and I, we've run into this issue before where folks have yelled and screamed who don't live in mobile home parks, who don't understand mobile home parks. And they try to take the side of a handful of tenants going, wow, this landlord is horrible. And there's a lot of landlord hate on the internet. And it's just funny because the one individual I'm thinking of that I know your mind is thinking of too, has since left that side of the business because what ended up happening is this individual got burned by one of these folks that, you want to go and try and help out because you hear the story and you're like, wow, I really need to help this individual. This landlord's evil and awful and horrible. And then it turns out when that person lost in court, when a judge said no, that individual turned on that other individual and wore that person out to the point where that person is no longer supporting this cause. And my retort to that person was, in so many words, there's a lot of really great people in mobile home parks, in any affordable housing or in any normal housing that do need help. There are bad landlords out there. Absolutely, there are bad landlords out there. But there are far less landlords than there are tenants. And there are plenty of tenants that are also very bad, by the way. The majority of people are wonderful, but there's a reason why there's warning labels on things, because there's always that one guy, right? But what I want to just take a second to say, Derek, which I know you'll agree with, is that I think that there's a limited number of properties, and they are controlled by a limited number of people, and they are the minority. And the way we can affect change when it comes to making sure landlords are behaving as they should is we work with them. We don't demonize them. We don't set fire to them. We work with them. We try to understand why they're behaving like they are. Are they truly greedy people? There are greedy landlords, absolutely. But the majority of us, We genuinely speaking love this, and we want what's best for our residents. We do. And demonizing us because there's a handful of jerks is not the right way to go about it. It just isn't. So my crusade, Derek, I'm proud to fight this fight with you, is to help not only educate people to work with your landlords and to hold bad landlords accountable, but also to help the would-be entrepreneur who does want to get in this space, who would be a good landlord, who are running into things like, oh, I don't have any money. That's why I have my freaking podcast, because I want to pay it forward and have those good would-be entrepreneurs having all the tools necessary to get in and help fight to combat slumlordism. So everybody listening in, please do not be shy to reach out to me. I don't ask for any money. I don't care. I genuinely speaking want to be the change I want to see in this world, which is I want good, clean, affordable housing. So especially so kiddos can go and get a good education so that they have the ability or the option at least to lift themselves from poverty. That is how we have a better society with better education, with more understanding and empathetic people from top to bottom. And we can do that together. So everybody listening in, Derek, thank you for giving me this platform to say that, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, dude. And I couldn't agree with you more, man. Very, very, very well said in that last go there. But everyone, thank you for tuning into the MHP show. Please like and subscribe. We're on iTunes, Spotify. You can hit me on all the social media platforms. Ryan, you can be reached where?
My website, archimedesgrp.com, or my LinkedIn are the two best ways to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.